Hey class, this video is for solving inequalities. Okay, so I'm going to go through basic principles on how to solve them, how to graph them, and if I give you a graph, what would you do? And I'm going to finish up on giving you a difficult inequality, how to solve it, and how to graph it. Alright, so I'm going to do this real quick. Okay, so at the very beginning, just to understand what these symbols are, we have this one, this one, this one. So we have four of them. How do we say these things? So this one is less than, we have greater than, less than or equal to, and greater than or equal to. These lines that are underneath the inequality symbol, they just mean equal to. Okay, meaning that we are including it. Okay. Now generally what I see students, their common questions, common mistakes are on graphing the inequality, where do I shade? Okay, well, I'm going to give you two. Okay. So I'm going to give you where we have x is less than 5. And I'm going to give you another way of writing that. Okay, we can have 5 is greater than x. Okay, so I'm going to say this again. This is x is less than 5, or 5 is greater than x. Okay, these two things say the same exact thing, but are written in a different way. It's like saying my right hand is right of my left hand, or my left hand is left of my right hand. They say the same thing, they mean the same thing, but I say it in a different way. Okay? Well, I'm going to put that over there, and I'm going to put another one, two more inequalities. B is greater than or equal to 3. And a different one, let's have negative 9 is less than y. Okay, I'm going to draw number lines underneath all of these, and we're going to see how do we graph these things. Okay, now normally in number line you see a whole bunch of dash marks, but I'm lazy. I'm just going to put that number. So I'm over here, I'm going to put 5. Over here I'm going to put 5. Here I'm going to put 3. And over here I'm going to put negative 9. Okay. Now the trick is this to graph. If we look at the inequality sign, okay, I like to think of it as an arrow. If the arrow ever points to the letter, what you want to do is you want to shade to the left. Okay, this happens 100% of the time, never changes, never fails. And if the arrow points to the number, you want to shade in the opposite direction, you want to shade to the right. Okay, and the way that I remember this is that letter starts with L, left starts with L, and, well, right has an R in it, and number has an R in it. That's the way I remember. Okay, well, over here, the letter, or the arrow points to the letter, so I'm going to put an open circle because we're not including it, and we're going to shade to the left. Okay, well, we said this is the exact same thing. The arrow points to the letter, okay, well, I'm going to put an open circle, and we shade to the left, okay, because that arrow is pointing to the letter, so we shade to the left. Okay, over here, we look at the arrow, well, it's pointing to the number, okay, so it points to the number, we shade to the right. But above 3, I'm going to put a closed circle, because of what the symbol represents. It says B is greater than or equal to 3. That equal to tells me I'm going to put a closed circle, and we shade to the right. And over here, ask yourself the question, where does the arrow point to? Well, it points to the letter, or sorry, it points to the number. So I'm putting an open circle because we're not including it, and since it does point to the number, we shade to the right. Okay, that's it. Ask yourself that question. Where does it point to? Well, with these things, never fails, works every single time. Okay, I'm going to erase this. Now there's something very special with inequalities, and it's this. It differs with an equation, and it's that whenever I divide or multiply only those two things by a negative, I flip the sign. Okay? Well, I'll give you one. Let's have negative 3x is less than or equal to 12. Okay? Well, to get x by itself, what I would do is I would get rid of this negative 3. Well, they're right next to each other, so that means they're multiplying. So I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to divide. So divide both sides by that number, which is negative 3. This cancels out. We have x is, and since I divided by a negative, okay, that's one of the key things with inequalities. This less than or equal to becomes greater than or equal to. Okay, and 12 divided by negative 3 is a negative 4. Okay, so that's what I really want. So what this says is x is greater than or equal to negative 4. Well, ask yourself the question, what are some numbers that are greater than or equal to negative 4? Well, there's a lot of them. Well, let's figure out these numbers by graphing them. Okay, so I'm putting negative 4. What type of circle do I put? I put closed. because it is greater than or equal to. Equal to tells me it's closed, and it points to the number. Alright, well, it points to the number, it tells me to shade to the right. And that's it. Okay, now if I go the other way around, if I didn't give you an inequality and it actually gave you a graph, would we know what the inequality would be? So, what if I were to give you this? I'm going to go put a couple dash marks. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's say that we just had a closed circle and it pointed to the right. Okay, well, what I like to do is I like to put a variable. Doesn't matter, I could put X, smiley face, donkey, doesn't matter. Anything that would represent a number is fine. So I'm going to put X. Well, I see it's above 3, so I'm going to write 3. And the key piece of this is noting the inequality sign. Well, I know that it points to the right. Well, we just kind of talked about what points to the right. The arrow must point to the number. And since it is shaded in, it's closed circle, that means I have to put the equal to part. So this inequality, X is greater than or equal to 3. What are some numbers that are greater than 3? Well, 4 is, 5 is, 6 is, all these things that we shaded to the right. Okay, and we'll finish up with one last example. I'm going to give you this. Let's have negative 15 minus n greater than negative 5. Okay, well, you just treat it like any equation. You want to get that variable by itself, get rid of everything else. Well, we want to leave negative n by itself. So let's get rid of this negative 15. Well, how do I get rid of it? I'm going to add 15. Now we add 15 because we want to do the opposite of subtracting, which is adding. It's the inverse of it. Inverse just means it's opposite. So what we're left with is we're left with negative n greater than, well, negative 5 plus 15 is a positive 10. Okay, but I still have this negative sign. We're not done. We have to get n by itself. Well, you just ask yourself the question, what number should be in front of n? Whenever you never see one, it's always 1. And in this case, it changes it to negative 1. Okay, well, in the same sense, we divide by that negative 1. Goes away. So we have n, and 10 divided by negative 1 is negative 10. Well, divided by negative, so what that means is that we have to switch the sign. So greater than becomes less than. And just graphing that, I'll just put a negative 10. Is it open or closed? Well, it's open. And it points to the letter, so that means we shade to the left. Left for letter. Okay, and that's it. So these are very basic concepts for inequalities, the symbols, the equations, dividing by negative. Hopefully you got a lot out of that. Alright, good luck. Bye.